Okay, so now let's talk about the STEM clubs. So the STEM clubs are something that needs a lot of thought, needs a lot of development, and so all I can offer is sort of some general guiding principles on how the STEM clubs should interact and operate. The first is in everything the STEM club does, it needs to think about and strive for the goals of IDEA. So in everything it does, it needs to be an inclusive environment. Students from different backgrounds need to feel welcome. What they say needs to be heard by their teammates. And so promoting this sort of behavior in the students is something that as facilitators will be something that you'll work on. I talked about diversity, equity, and access already. So student recruitment, as teachers and counselors, your role is to get students excited about this project, get students recruited to be part of the STEM club, and you really need to make a concerted effort to get students from underrepresented groups. So students from underrepresented groups in STEM include women, students from ethnic minorities, so African American, Hispanic, Native American, Native Alaskan, and so forth. Low-income students, so students who typically will not have resources to be able to go to really cool STEM summer camps and so forth. And students who are first generation, meaning that their parents did not complete college. So the goal is to recruit students from these populations at a higher level than if you just randomly picked students. So one example, so I'm going to give this as a message. One way that you can do this is to do the micro-messaging ideas that we talked about last week. So talk about strengths of the student, encourage them based on positive affirmations. So things like, you see a student, Keisha, you have a passion for learning and you have a passion for helping others. I think you'd enjoy being a part of the STEM club because there's an opportunity to learn through projects and also to do something for your community through a capstone project. You also have a very welcoming personality. You get along with people very nicely. You'd be a natural leader of the club. So the target, or the goal of that statement is to get the student excited about being part of it and to be, feel like they have an ability to do the things that we want them to do. The target for each club is to have 40 members. So as I mentioned, we have 24 schools, roughly 40 to 45 members. That's the goal. It's not something that we're going to hold you to exactly, but the goal is to have roughly 40 members or more. And then we want the representation within that group of 40 to significantly exceed the demographics of the school for that group. What I mean by that is we want to have ideally at least 20 female students so that we have a critical mass. There's a lot of theory about how students interact in group settings, and there's a number that I have in my head that if 30% of the students are from a certain affinity group, they don't feel like they're singled out and they don't feel like they're different than the other students in the class. And so getting to that critical mass of 30% or even better to 50% will really help students from underrepresented groups. Now, some of the schools that we're working with, it's almost 100% minority, so you can't significantly exceed 100%, but if you're at high level, that's good too. Okay. Second set of guiding principles, probably one of the most interesting ideas is that the club should be led by the students. The club should be viewed as an extracurricular activity that students are leading, that they're motivated by, that they're governing, that they're controlling, and so forth. So an informal learning opportunity that provides students hands-on experience with emerging technologies while at the same time developing fundamental skills and interest in STEM. So what is your role? So your role as teachers and as counselors and as activity coordinators is to be facilitators. So there's a common statement that I've heard when you're working as a facilitator, if the students are stuck, remind them that they should talk to each other. Remind them that they should collaborate because other students, this sort of peer-to-peer learning is a very powerful model. I don't know about everyone in the room, but when I have to teach something to someone else, I learn it a lot better than if I had learned it just in class. So the idea of peers helping peers, teaching each other how to do certain activities and certain projects is very important. So when students are stuck, encourage them to at least 3 other students before they come to you to ask for the answer. And you're not always going to know the answer. So a lot of this is also going to be encouraging them to use online resources to find information to the questions that they have. The third part of leading the club by the students is that there should be opportunities for leadership. So we talked last week, or I should say, the admissions group talked last week about extracurricular activities, especially as they relate to potential majors. That's a major, or that's a very important point in the admissions process. And so the club offers many leadership opportunities. Minimally, I can envision, and maybe each school has slightly different structure, but I can envision the need for having a president of the club, having someone who's equipment manager, someone who's treasurer. Now, the equipment manager and the treasurer could be the same person, or it could be 2 different people, and someone who's in charge of membership, who's keeping track of which students are part of the club, and also being the liaison with the university researchers as we're working with the optional part of the program, which is the educational research. So those positions definitely should exist. There should be some election, probably. Maybe in the first, to get going, the facilitators will nominate certain students to be in these leadership positions. Now, there's also an option to add additional leadership positions. So a lot of the projects, it'll be good if one student really knows how to do that project and can teach others. And so you can have technical project leaders who are basically the experts at each of the individual projects. There's an idea of having a director of community outreach. So when you're thinking about, or the students are thinking about the projects that they're going to do for their capstone project, they need to interact with the community to find out what the needs are, what projects are going to be beneficial. So someone who is leading that effort would be a good thing. There can be a social chair, there can be a publicity chair. So the publicity chair is going to document the stuff that the STEM Club does. They'll interface with us. We can put stuff up on our website as to what projects students have done. We can coordinate with getting local media to potentially cover some of this. And then we can work on press releases. So the University of Illinois has a very good communications department, and the students and their projects and their messages can get out to a very large audience if we work together. So these are sort of the positions that I see. You may realize, oh, our school has a specific need and we need another person to do a certain task. And so that could be another leadership opportunity. One of the interesting things with the projects is that it allows for flexible scheduling. Now, most of the projects can be done in any sequence. So if there's students who are really excited about a topic that's in Chapter 14, they can start with the topic in Chapter 14. Most of the projects can also be done at home. So if there are motivated students who have other commitments, like they're in varsity sports or they're doing band or something else, it's possible for them to take the supplies with them home and work on the projects at home. Now, there are a few things that they can't do at home, like the soldering and maybe some of the stuff that requires the equipment, but most of the activities are portable and can be done outside of school time, outside of school facilities. Okay, last point that I want to bring up with the structure is that there's a curriculum and there's a capstone project. So the students will build self-efficacy and learn technical skills by completing STEM projects of increasing difficulty. So the idea of, I can do this because I've done something that was similar to it previously. We're going to build up their self-efficacy by this sort of approach. And the projects were based on a summer camp that I helped to develop called Girls Learning Electrical Engineering. And during the week, the students in the camp will build all of this stuff within about 40 hours of the week. And they sprinkle in some tours. So it actually can be done in very short time. Now, in the STEM clubs, we want students to have enough time to really understand and appreciate. So one of the things that was missing, I would say, in our summer camps is with only a week and with many, many activities we want to do, we rush in a lot of things, and the students don't always fully get a chance to appreciate, to think, to reflect on the activities that they do. So in the STEM club format, let's say the students are meeting twice a week for an hour, or once a week for an hour. They have that opportunity in between meetings to do reading, to understand more of the material, to look up stuff that's on videos, to talk with each other, to reinforce that learning. In addition to the curriculum, which is very structured in terms of the projects that the students do, there's also unstructured work. And so throughout the years, we'd like the students to work in groups and use the principles of engineering design to think of and then to complete a capstone project. Ideally, the project will positively impact their community or a group that they're passionate about. And so these are the two, I would say, key elements in sort of the STEM club. Now, there's a lot of things that the STEM club can also do that I don't have on these slides. So one possibility is that they do a journal club. So they subscribe to some of these free scientific or math or engineering related journals that are targeted at the high school level. And then they read articles to learn more about specific topics, and they can discuss it with each other as to, oh, did you read this article about how the National Science Foundation is really excited about and is doing a lot of work in quantum? What is quantum computing? What is that about? That's not currently covered in what we're learning. Can I go and can we learn more about this new hot initiative? So looking at these sorts of engineering or STEM related journals that are or magazines that are at the appropriate level, and we'll have a list of them on our webpage, could be one activity that the club does. Peer teaching can be another thing. So let's say that students who are in STEM club, they're really excited about what they're doing. They want to recruit more students to STEM club, so they hold a workshop. Everyone at the school, you're invited. We're going to come together and we're going to build something cool. And so the students of the STEM club can then transfer their knowledge by teaching, which reinforces that, other students at the school. Maybe it's part of an assembly, maybe they're doing a presentation, a show and tell, an open house night, these sorts of things. So I'll open it up for questions.